This is fictional story to bring faith and heart.
The music backstage still echoed faintly from the main hall, where laughter mixed with soft clinking glasses. But in the quiet corner of the lounge, time seemed to slow. Elon Musk sat on a velvet chair near the open balcony, eyes scanning the stars above like they owed him an answer he couldn't quite phrase. That's when Beyoncé walked in. No lights, no cameras, just her in a simple black dress, heels in her hand, holding a glass of water instead of wine. She smiled gently. "Mind if I sit?" Elon nodded, not looking up from the sky. "It's quiet out here." She laughed softly. "Finally. I was starting to think silence was extinct." He glanced at her, the weight behind his eyes obvious even before he spoke. "Silence is rare, hard to find when the engines are always running." She looked at him for a moment, then leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Elon, you've touched the stars, but have you ever touched your soul?" He turned to her slowly, caught off guard. For someone used to questions about Mars, satellites, neural implants, this one left him disarmed. "I don't know," he admitted. "I know how to launch rockets, I know how to move numbers, but soul?" He paused. "I don't think I've ever been still long enough to feel it." Beyoncé rested her elbows on her knees and looked at the floor, almost as if the question had circled back to her. "I used to chase applause," she said quietly. "Thought it meant I was enough. But no matter how loud they clapped, I still felt hollow." He looked at her, really looked. "So what changed?" "One night," she said, "I prayed. Not with words, not with music, just silence. I told God I was tired of pretending I was fine, and I felt something, not applause, just a stillness, like God wasn't clapping, he was calling." Elon blinked. That word stuck. Calling, not clapping. He leaned back, hands folded in his lap. "My son asked me something last week," he said slowly. "He was watching a rocket test with me, and he said, 'Dad, can God hear us through the engines?'" Beyoncé didn't respond right away. Her lips parted, but she let the silence say more than words ever could. "I didn't know how to answer him," Elon continued. "I've built machines that listen better than most people do, but I've never once tried to listen for God." She reached out, gently placing her hand on his. "Then maybe," she said, "it's time to turn them off." Elon looked down at her hand, then up into her eyes. There was no judgment there. Just presence. Human presence. "Do you believe in God?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "I believe he never left. We just got louder than his whisper." The wind moved softly through the open balcony, and Elon felt it in a way he hadn't before. Not just air. Something more. A hush. "I don't know how to pray," he said. "You don't have to," she replied. "Just be still. Listen. Ask a question, then wait like a child does, expecting someone to answer." He leaned forward, his voice quieter than ever. "What if no one answers?" She didn't flinch. "What if they do, and you've just never been quiet enough to hear?" The question didn't feel like a challenge. It felt like an invitation. They sat there for a moment. Neither of them said anything. The stars above blinked slowly, one by one. "I've spent my life building things," Elon said, almost to himself. "But I've never built stillness." Beyoncé didn't say anything. She just nodded. And then, for the first time in a very long time, Elon Musk sat still. But in that stillness, a new question crept in, soft and haunting, one he couldn't shake. "If I stop everything, what will I find inside me?" He didn't move. The stars above seemed closer now, like they were waiting, watching, listening. Beyoncé sat beside him in silence. She wasn't rushing him. She wasn't performing, and that made it even harder for Elon to hide. "Do you ever get scared?" he finally asked. She turned her head, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "Of what?" He hesitated. "Of what's in here?" He gently tapped his chest. She nodded slowly. Every time I slow down. He exhaled like he had been holding something in for years. That's the thing. When I stop moving, it's like there's a storm in me. Noise, pressure, guilt, questions I don't want to hear the answers to. She looked at him with kindness, not pity. Maybe the storm isn't your enemy. Maybe it's what leads you home. Elon looked out again. My son's question haunts me. About God hearing through the engines? He nodded. I told him maybe, but he looked disappointed, like he wanted me to say yes. Beyoncé tilted her head, thinking. Sometimes kids don't need the right answer. They need the real one, the honest one. Even if it's, I don't know, but I want to find out. Elon leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I want to believe there's something out there, but I've spent my life trusting what I can measure. She smiled gently. Love can't be measured. But you still know when it's real, don't you? His eyes dropped. Sometimes, and I'm not even sure I know what love is anymore. That hit something deep in her. She didn't offer a quick fix. Instead, she told a story. When I was on tour years ago, I was exhausted. My voice was tired, my body was tired, my soul empty. I stood behind the curtain one night and I told God, I can't do this without knowing you're real. Elon listened, his posture softening. That night, nothing magical happened. No visions, no voice. But something in my heart got quiet. And in that quiet I felt held. Not by fame, not by fans, but by something deeper. Like a love that didn't care how perfect I was. She looked at Elon, eyes glistening. That was the first night I sang not for applause, but out of thankfulness. Elon was quiet for a long time. My son told me, he said, voice trembling. Dad, I think God loves quiet people the most, because he can actually talk to them. Beyoncé smiled. Sounds like your son knows more than both of us. He chuckled softly. But it wasn't just amusement. It was something else. A tiny crack in a wall he'd spent decades building. I've been afraid, he said, that if I ever stop, I'll fall apart. That everything I built would mean nothing. That I'd look inside and find nothing but echoes. She placed her hand over his again. Maybe that echo is God calling you back. Elon looked at her, eyes raw and searching. Calling me to what? To remember who you were, she said softly. Before the rockets, before the headlines, when your heart still wondered about stars instead of owning them. He leaned back and looked up. The stars no longer looked like conquests. They looked like questions. What do I even say to God? He asked. She looked at him, her voice steady. Start with what's true. He stared into the night sky and whispered, almost like a child. I'm tired, and I don't know who I am anymore. The words hung there, fragile and sacred. And just as silence returned, Beyoncé whispered something that wrapped around him like a prayer. Then maybe that's the moment God's been waiting for. Elon's eyes closed slowly, not from sleep, but from something deeper, a surrender. Not to religion, not to a rule, but to rest, stillness. But beneath that moment, one question echoed louder than all. What if I was never supposed to do this alone? The stars kept shining, but something in Elon had shifted. Not dramatically, not like lightning from the sky, but like a soft breath after holding one in too long. He turned to Beyoncé, his voice hushed. I don't think I've ever told anyone that. She nodded. It's strange, isn't it? How sometimes the soul speaks only when we stop trying to control the conversation. He gave a weak smile. I built my life on control. I built mine on performance, she said. Same trap, different mask. He glanced at her, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Do you ever feel like the more people see you, the less they know you? All the time, she said. There were nights I'd stand in front of thousands and still feel like I didn't exist. Elon's voice cracked. How do we get so far from ourselves and not even notice? She didn't answer right away. Then, after a pause, she whispered, Noise. So much noise. Success, pressure, expectations. And underneath all of it, this quiet ache, like something is missing and no one knows what. He nodded slowly. Sometimes I think I've been trying to build a future that can finally silence the ache. But what if the ache isn't meant to be silenced? She asked gently. What if it's meant to be answered? Elon looked down, eyes brimming now. I don't even know how to begin. You already have, she said. There was a long silence, and then he asked, Do you think God really listens? Or is it just wishful thinking? She turned to him with softness in her eyes. I think he's been listening the whole time. We're the ones who stopped talking like he was real. Elon took a deep breath. When I was a kid, he said, I used to lie on my back and talk to the stars. I didn't call it prayer. I didn't know what it was, but I felt like something out there cared. Maybe that was your soul remembering. Remembering what? That you were never supposed to carry the whole universe on your shoulders. His shoulders trembled a little, like the weight she spoke of had finally been named. I've spent my whole life thinking I had to fix the world, he said. Invent, solve, protect, control. And how's that working? She asked gently. He gave a half laugh, half sob. I'm exhausted. She reached over again, not to preach, not to fix, just to be there. Her hand on his felt like peace. You know, she said, my daughter once asked me why people close their eyes when they pray. What did you tell her? I said, because sometimes you have to stop looking around, to start looking in. He closed his eyes slowly. The weight didn't vanish, but it felt shared now, like he wasn't alone with it anymore. Do you think God can forgive someone who doesn't know how to believe? He whispered. She didn't rush her answer. I think God doesn't wait for belief. He waits for honesty, and when you show up broken, he doesn't turn away. He leans in. Tears slipped down Elon's face before he even noticed them. I thought I had to be strong to matter. No, she said softly. You just have to be real. The stars above didn't change, but Elon's heart did. Somewhere deep inside, a door he'd welded shut with logic, fear, and noise, quietly unlocked. And yet, even in this peace, one raw question lingered, floating in the quiet between them. If I stop trying to save the world, will anyone still love me? The silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt holy. Elon wiped his eyes with the edge of his sleeve, embarrassed for a moment. But Beyoncé didn't look away. She didn't treat his tears like weakness. She treated them like truth. I don't know how to live without a mission, he said finally. She nodded gently. A mission is good, but not when it replaces your heart. He looked out at the night, where stars blinked slowly behind a thin veil of clouds. I've always thought, if I can just get humanity to Mars, maybe I'll have done something that matters. You've done things that matter, she said. But what about the things that don't make headlines? When was the last time you looked your son in the eyes and didn't feel rushed? Elon's face changed. His jaw tightened slightly. He asked me to play with him last week. I told him I had a call. I watched the joy fall off his face like it didn't know where to go. Her voice softened, almost breaking. I've seen that look, in my own kids, and it haunts you, doesn't it? He nodded. I always thought I could give him everything if I worked hard enough, Elon whispered. But I think all he wants is me. Sometimes, she said, the best thing we can give the people we love is our full attention. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and exhaled deeply. But what happens if I stop? What if the world breaks while I'm resting? She reached out, her words gentle but firm. You're not God, Elon. You're a man. A brilliant one, yes. But even brilliance breaks when it forgets to breathe. That struck something deep. He looked over at her, unsure, afraid, vulnerable. If I stop trying to save the world, will I still be worthy of love? Beyoncé's eyes filled with tears. You were worthy before you built a single thing. You were worthy the day you were born. The sentence dropped into his chest like a stone into water. Heavy, slow, and full of truth. I've never believed that, he said. I didn't either, she admitted. For years, I thought love had to be earned, that I had to be perfect. But love, real love, doesn't keep score. They sat together quietly again. The air was cool, but not cold. A gentle breeze danced through the balcony, and Elon let it touch his face. It reminded him of something far away, but not forgotten. A day long ago, barefoot in a field, the sound of crickets, his mother calling him in for dinner. He was 7, and for one small moment, the world had felt safe. Do you think God remembers us as children? He asked suddenly. Beyoncé turned to him, smiling softly. I think he never stopped seeing us that way. Even when we've lost our way? Especially then. He looked down at his hands. Hands that had held the future. Hands that had signed deals, launched rockets, shaken presidents' hands. But tonight, they trembled. Sometimes, he said, I wish someone would just tell me it's okay to let go. She reached out slowly, took his hand in hers, and said with quiet conviction, It's okay to let go. A tear fell, and he didn't stop it this time. For once, he wasn't trying to lead the world. He was just trying to find his way back home. But even in that warmth, a question still whispered from somewhere deep within. If I don't know who I am without all this, who am I really? The question echoed in Elon's chest like a bell, quiet at first but growing louder the longer he sat with it. Who am I? Really? Not the innovator, not the CEO, not the man the world thinks knows everything. Just Elon. He looked down, almost afraid to meet his own eyes in the reflection of the glass railing. I don't think I've ever asked that question out loud. Beyoncé didn't flinch. It's a question most people spend their lives avoiding. Until something, grief, silence, a moment like this, finally asks it for them. He took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. When I was a kid, I used to imagine being someone important, someone the world needed. It felt good to think I could save people. She leaned back slightly, listening with quiet curiosity. But now, he said, I'm starting to wonder if I chased that dream so hard because I didn't feel needed anywhere else. There was a pause, raw and unfiltered. Beyoncé looked at him gently. I once told my therapist, if I'm not Beyoncé, who's left? And you know what she said? Elon shook his head. She said, maybe that's where real life finally begins. He blinked, the weight of that sinking in. Who is Elon without the titles? She asked softly. Without the vision boards and the launch pads? Without the applause? He didn't answer. He couldn't. But then he looked up at the stars, as if searching for the boy who used to talk to them without needing to own them. I think, he whispered, he was kind. Beyoncé smiled. That's a good place to start. He nodded slowly. He loved asking questions. He wondered if trees could talk to each other. He cried when birds got hurt. Her voice was warm. He sounds like someone God never stopped loving. Elon wiped another tear away, surprised at how easily they came now. Somewhere along the way, I traded wonder for strategy. We all do, she said. The world tells us it's safer to build walls than open doors. But wonder is where the soul breathes. He looked at her, genuinely moved. How do I go back? You don't go back, she said. You go in. Backwards is regret. Inward is restoration. He held that thought, like a map he'd never seen before. a direction that wasn't out there among the stars, but in here, in the chambers of his own chest. "I don't know how to pray," he said. "Not really." "You just did," she replied. He laughed softly, unsure. "That was a mess. God hears the mess, sometimes better than the memorized lines." Elon closed his eyes for a moment. The kind of silence that came wasn't hollow. It was sacred, like a waiting room for the soul. Then, without thinking, he whispered under his breath, "God, I don't know who I am anymore, but I want to know. Please, help me remember." No one spoke after that, not even the wind. Beyoncé placed a hand on his shoulder, not to answer, not to explain, just to be present. And in that presence, something deeper than words stirred. Not peace yet, not certainty, but the start of something real. Yet even as the stars stayed still, one last ache rose to the surface of Elon's heart. What if the boy I used to be is too far gone to bring back? Elon sat motionless, the question echoing louder than any launch countdown he'd ever heard. What if the boy I used to be is too far gone to bring back? Beyoncé didn't try to fill the silence. She just stayed beside him, her presence speaking more than words ever could. Finally, he whispered, "I don't remember the last time I felt like him. That boy who used to believe trees could whisper, who cried for birds." She turned toward him. "Maybe he never left. Maybe he's just waiting for you to listen again." Elon stared out into the night. "I buried him, under pressure, pride, survival. And God," she said softly, "is really good at unburying things." He looked at her, eyes tired but open. "What if I don't deserve to be that boy again?" She smiled, the kind of smile that comes from knowing pain and still choosing to love. Deserve has nothing to do with it. It's not about earning your way back. It's about remembering you were never forgotten. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he let go. He let go of the need to be the genius, the rescuer, the one with the answers. He let the tears fall freely now, not because he was broken, but because he was healing. "I told my son once," he said through shaky breath, "that love is when you care about someone more than your own comfort. But I don't think I've let anyone love me like that." Beyoncé's voice was barely above a whisper. "That's how God loves us, not for the polished version, not for the image, but the real, messy, fragile one." He nodded slowly, letting the truth settle. "I want to believe that." "You just did," she said, squeezing his hand. A gentle breeze swept across the balcony. The stars didn't flicker. They burned steady, patient, eternal. And something in Elon flickered back. A memory. A boy kneeling in the dirt, planting a stick in the ground and calling it a rocket. Not for the world to see, just for himself, just for wonder. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding for years. And then, almost afraid to disturb the quiet, he asked, "Do you think God would still want to talk to me, after all this time?" Beyoncé's eyes softened. "He never stopped. You just stopped answering." Elon swallowed hard. "And what if I still don't know how to answer?" "Start with the truth," she said. "Start where you are." He looked up again at the sky, not to study it, not to conquer it, but to surrender. And in a voice trembling but honest, he whispered into the night, "I don't know much, but I want to learn how to love again. I want to be whole." And in that quiet, without flash or fanfare, something inside him breathed for the first time. Not his lungs, his soul. He turned back to Beyoncé, his voice low but alive. "Thank you for sitting with me, for not trying to fix me." She smiled. "Sometimes sitting still is the most powerful kind of love." He looked at his hands again. They weren't building tonight. They weren't solving. They were open, empty, ready. And for the first time he realized that maybe emptiness wasn't failure. It was invitation. An invitation to be filled. By faith, by love, by the voice he'd long forgotten how to hear. And as the stars watched in silence, Elon Musk, man of machines, of missions, of Mars, whispered into the darkness, "If you're still there, I'm listening."